Ms. Chandni Ravani, that is the Director of Learning and Organizational Development at Euphoria Consulting, a global firm specializing in change management, leadership development, and building future-ready teams. With over 15 years of experience across HR, behavioral sciences, and institutions like Harvard, Chandni brings a cross-disciplinary lens to organizational growth. She designs impactful OD interventions and capability building programs that enhance leadership effectiveness, drive culture evolution, and align teams with strategic goals. At Euphoria, she leads initiatives that help organizations define a compelling employee value proposition, deepen leadership pipelines, and foster agile, inclusive cultures. Since 2004, Euphoria has partnered with clients across industries to unlock performance, enable transformation, and support long-term sustainable success in a rapidly changing business landscape. With this, everyone, let's invite Ms. Chandni on stage with a huge round of applause. Let's bring in some energy, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaskar. Namaste. One more time, please, a little louder. Namaste. Good evening. Okay, before I start my presentation for today, and I know we are really, late on our schedule, I would like you all to take the first 30 seconds, close your eyes, and listen to my instructions. Close your eyes. Let us pay our gratitude to our friends, family, colleagues, bosses, ex-bosses, any individual or a group of individuals because of whom you are able to attend this event today. They are your support system, they are the spine, they manage everything in the background so that you are able to be here present today. Pay your gratitude, tell them thank you, and most importantly, thank yourself. Thank yourself enough, and with a heart full of gratitude and a smile on your face, you may open your eyes. Okay, while my background has already been shared, Euphoria Consulting is a result of IIM Ahmedabad's academic rigor and was established in 2004. What we particularly do is we help our client organizations to align the people's strategies with the organizational objectives, ensuring long-term success. What I'm going to be presenting here today is a fresh outlook, a new approach on OD called the Perpetual Fluidity model of OD, which has been developed by Euphoria Consulting, and we have been using this with our client organizations in the last few years. So before I move forward and set the context for the next few minutes, before entering this room, I was talking to my founder's son, who said that, Chandni, you already know that VUCA is outdated, right? How many of you know VUCA is already outdated? What is the latest thing after VUCA? Bani. Yes, thank you so much. Brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. That is the reality we are living in today. So I'll be setting the context for today, covering how do I operate as an OD practitioner in an environment which is so volatile, which is so turbulent and ever-changing. From there, I will take you through why are most of the OD interventions failing more and more? What are some of the common reasons behind it? Why is there a need for this new approach, which Euphoria has developed in collaboration with IIM Ahmedabad and few of our mentors who are with us on board? From there, we will also compare both the models, that how our model is different from the traditional OD approach. Where all have we used this model? So I will end the presentation with the case studies, which are our success stories where we have been using this model. So as I said, today's times are that of turbulence, volatility, and chaos. That has become the new normal for today. So what is the challenge? The challenge is that while this is my today's reality, while Bani is today's reality, World Economic Forum recently published a report where it stated that today's organizational reality is that of extreme volatility, and the only thing constant is the anticipation of the next crisis, which means crisis is the new normal. And where are we falling behind? We are trying to solve today's problems with yesterday's solutions, also famously supported and quoted by Peter Drucker. While this is one of the reality, and we are literally rope walking as we try to do this. Apart from this, because of our approach, most of the OD interventions by OD practitioners over the years, which was a very traditional approach of looking at OD interventions, gradually it is failing. So that is why in organizations, if you look at a realistic scenario, initially there's a lot of sizzling around the OD interventions, you know, like a sizzler, it sizzles up. But over a period of time, all it does, it fizzles out. And why is that happening? There are some of the reasons which research also mentions and have been backed by very famous case studies globally for these OD interventions to fail. I'll state two case studies at this stage. One is misalignment with the business goals of the organizational culture. To state an example here is of General Motors. In 2009, when it declared bankruptcy, there were a lot of OD interventions GM tried, but all of them failed. You know why? Because GM's culture was resistant to change, especially the employees were very resistant to giving up the old patterns of working to make way for the newer approaches. What happened then? The newly hired CEO, Ed Whitecare, he came up with a very fresh approach to OD, wherein he started focusing on responsiveness, adaptability, and resilience as against bureaucracy and complacency. What was the output of that within 18 months? The result of that intervention was that GM could pay back its government loan, its government debt in full, and that too much ahead of the schedule. This is the power, this is the impact that OD interventions can create. Another example to state here would be McDonald's in 2015. While McDonald's was trying to introduce too many interventions altogether, it was trying to restructure its organization globally. It was trying to come up with menu innovation, menu iteration. It was also simultaneously working on capability building and employee engagement. What was the result? The result was that it not just left McDonald's customers confused that what exactly is the brand image McDonald's is trying to sell. It also left its own employees confused. So that is what happens when we try to do too many interventions altogether. And these are some of the other reasons why OD interventions fail. On top of that, now the previous ones were rooting from the internal choice making of the organization. We also have the external reality, which is very, very complex. I often hear a lot of MD, CEOs, and CXOs whom I meet say that today's business environment is so fast changing that by the time you arrive at the solution, the problem statement itself has changed. And so the model you have been applying for the last few months has already become obsolete, and there's no impact of the same. On top of that, we have the employee expectations, which are ever-changing, technological disruptions, and all of these, I'm very glad that directly or indirectly we have covered in all the presentations and the panel discussions that have happened today during the whole day. So what is the need for the perpetual fluidity model? So I'm also a farmer turned professional from Gujarat, and that's where my entrepreneurial spirit, comes from. This I look at as an opportunity to move away from the traditional OD approach to a more fluid approach of OD, which we are calling it as the Perpetual Fluidity model of OD. It's a dynamic process or system that continuously evolves, responds, and adapts to the contextual reality of the present and matches itself to the organization's reality in the here and now and not there and then. Secondly, organizations with these fluid systems are more resilient and able to absorb change rather than react to it. So we make teams and organizations change ready. Lastly, incorporating fluidity in the OD interventions, adapt and evolve constantly rather than relying on periodic interventions. I will further explain this through how it is different from the traditional OD approach. Let's say there's an OD intervention that we are running at an organization of 1 to 2 years to address the communication challenges as well as collaboration between the teams. Now, a traditional model, you would design an intervention, you implement it for about 18 months to 2 years. At the end of the intervention, you may or may not measure the success or the failure, and then the process halts. What the traditional OD approach proposes is that we design interventions in phases. While we design the scope of the intervention, we don't focus on the end goal. We are not tying or marrying our approach to a particular process, system, or specific actions that we need to take along the go. Secondly, the perpetual fluidity model gives you the chance to continuously adopt your OD interventions every quarter, not at the end of the year or not at the end of 2 years. Third, the role of leadership becomes very, very important because in all our OD interventions, the leaders don't just direct or guide. They are equal collaborators in the process. They have to be a role model of the change process, and it is percolated from top to bottom. Next, this approach is, because it's of its ongoing nature, it gives you an opportunity to make iterations on the go and not wait for the intervention to end, then collect the data, and then probably by then the whole impact of it is gone. Now, so what exactly is this model? This model is divided into 3 phases: the pulse phase, the adapt phase, and the evolve phase. Very, very interesting model, works extremely well in any industry that we've tried so far. Of course, in all of these interventions, one thing is very, very important is the support of the top level management. So what happens in the pulse phase? Pulse, everybody aware of it? We sense the pulse of humans. We sense the pulse of the organization. Where the organization is in today's context. What are the real challenges that it is facing? So during this phase, our background in behavioral sciences, and I'm also a student of psychology at Harvard University, Boston, my background becomes very, very important here because this is also a phase of self-reflection, of reality check, and also that of acceptance for the need for change, which we as consultants then need to communicate to the entire organization. So a lot of time is spent on this phase where we have to seek consensus of all the stakeholders involved in the intervention. So the pulse phase is about continuously sensing what exactly is the need for the organization, and what we do in this phase is we only decide the scope of the entire intervention, not the end goal. So let's say I design the phase 1, then we move on to implementing just the phase 1 of the intervention. Moving on to the adapt phase. The adaptation phase is a phase where we start identifying that what are the patterns that are no more working in my system? What are the things I wish to continue? What are the things I wish to drop? And there is a continuous pulse sensing, even which is linked to this phase. What are the feedback mechanisms? How effective they are? Can I train my employees at all the levels of the organization to actually empower them to transform the cultural values which are just there on the website or on the walls of the company into real capability which they can go back and practice at their role level. There is a constant evaluation in this phase of all the efforts that we are taking, whether or not are they creating the right impact, okay? Then again, during this phase, what we do is that there is a phase, there is a response strategy which is designed, which means the 3 months that we've spent, the intervention we have executed, we need to constantly monitor and seek feedback and see what are the things that are working, not working, and or we need to drop at this stage. So again, there is a pulse check here. After the adopt phase, we move on to the evolve phase. The evolve phase becomes very, very important because it's largely dependent upon the commitment and the actions taken or not taken by all the stakeholders in the phase 2. So what we are doing in the evolve phase is that we are simply freezing the new patterns, the newer ways of looking at our roles, the newer communication and collaboration strategies that we've introduced into the system, into the organization, the newer ways of looking at my own role. So in Hindi, we call this as चीज़ों को और काम को देखने का नज़रिया, perspectives. Am I able to bring in a shift in the employee mindset and the perspective? Now, the evolve phase also becomes very, very important here because it is also directly linked to the pulse phase. If during this phase I realize that there are some of the things which I need to course correct, okay, then again you go back to the pulse phase, you conduct a very systematic diagnostic study, and then you incorporate those changes even in the evolve phase. That is why this phase, if you can see on the left side, this particular model works in a linear manner, in a binary manner, as well as in a circular manner. And this, I will now show it through the support of 2 case studies, which are our success stories. So one is from the manufacturing sector, another is from a fintech. So the scenario here is a manufacturing setup owned, it's having a JV with a European MNC, and they want to transition to a professionally managed team, also bringing in automation and digitalization at the plant level. Now, if you go to see, if I divide what we did into 3 phases is, the pulse phase would include all the intervention or the efforts we put in securing intervention consensus from all the stakeholders. So the first 5 months were simply spent upon understanding the pulse of the organization, winning their confidence of all the stakeholders, not the top level management, their internal customers as well as their external customers. 5 months of investment in the pulse stage. Moving on from there, what happened in the second stage was just where we were 8 months into the intervention journey. We live in India. So again, there were surprises. A new equity partner came on board, and the transitioning process for the JV sailed smooth and were able to absorb the expectations of the new partner. Now, this was also one of the impact because of all the coaching, the capability building, the culture transformation initiatives we had taken with this group for the first 8 months. Finally, in the evolve phase, the plant productivity team got acquainted with the automated plant operations with a continuous skill upgradation, and this process again goes through pulse, adopt, evolve every quarter. The second case study, which is also very close to our heart, is about the largest fintech company of the country. Very high regulatory requirements and compliances. So the first phase, the first few months, 10 months was spent on securing intervention consensus from every stakeholders, including the regulatory bodies, the board members, the customers, channel partners, all of them. Every 4 months, there was a repeat of the pulse check for any critical realignment we needed to do in our OD intervention. So every 4 months there was a data collection, there were feedback taken, there were feedback mechanisms in place, behavioral as well as data bound. We had to monitor all of that and continuously integrate that into the day-to-day operations. What happened finally in the evolve phases, just about, we were 17 months old into the intervention, COVID hit. This company was also planning to launch the IPO. With our intervention support, they were able to smoothly launch the IPO. They were also able to break up its future talent pool. The headquarters was also divided into 2 different locations. And all of this, they were able to do it with as less friction and resistance as possible through the support of this model. So I would like to now end my presentation stating 4 important things, that the perpetual fluidity model focuses more on continuously unleashing the potential. So it allows you to not just focus on the larger strategic vision of the organization, but simultaneously, continuously align your people's strategies with that of the organization, and hence providing an opportunity for them to unleash their potential. It's an agile response to change, which means we make teams change ready so that they can respond and not react to change. Third, empowering self-sustainability. After about 18 to 22 months of that intervention, we leave the organization making them self-sustainable. They no more need to depend upon us. And fourth, the show must go on. So, of course, the whole context from today, as well as what we've discussed till now, says that we continuously need to evolve and adapt and see what are the newer ways through which we can look at this angle of organizational development. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And to give away a small token of appreciation, may I invite on stage Mr. Arvind Srivastav, President HR, Acums Drugs and Pharmaceuticals Limited. Sir, please join in and present a small memento to